Another film I watched this week was The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes, the 1939 adventure starring Basil Rathbone as the famous detective and Nigel Bruce as Dr. Watson. It's the second in the series of Holmes films that Rathbone made. The first was The Hound of the Baskervilles earlier the same year, and this is the first to be an original story rather than based on one of Arthur Conan Doyle's adventures. It's supposedly adapted from the highly successful stage play Sherlock Holmes by William Gillette, but it's actually largely an original story in which Moriarty is cleared of his latest crime, even though Holmes has been able to produce at the 12th hour rather than the 11th evidence that proves he's guilty. Moriarty schemes to destroy Holmes forever by coming up with the perfect crime and pointing Holmes in a different direction. So Holmes thus embarks on a dual investigation into the potential theft of a priceless emerald and a mysterious threat against the life of a young socialite, um, while Moriarty schemes in the background and plans a greater crime than both put together. It's a very tight hour and 21 minutes. This is, I think, the first time I've seen Rathbone as Holmes, and I thought he was superb. He looks exactly the way Holmes should look. He has the charm and the charisma and the intelligence and the energy that you really want from that character. He plays it, I think, also a lot lighter than you would think. He's not as um, cold and cerebral as one might imagine. In fact, the film deliberately ends with Holmes laughing at a joke Watson's made. Watson, by contrast, is unfortunately something of a buffoon, as a hallmark of these movies and their legacy, is making the audience think that Watson is an idiot, that Holmes merely has around in order to have someone to talk to, in lieu of a parrot or a cabbage that he can keep on his shoulder. But Bruce is very likable and engaging, and uh, the fact that he's Holmes' most trusted confidant, I think, comes across rather well. Um, George Zucco as Moriarty, I thought, was superb, very cold, charismatic, and fun to watch as a villain. And I thought his overall scheme was actually quite well constructed, even though it does rely on Holmes just taking it at face value and not assuming that it's a scheme by Moriarty, even though he says in an early scheme that he's waiting for Moriarty to make the next move in their endless battle of wits. And spoilers, I was somewhat surprised that the movie ends with Holmes just killing Moriarty and shoving him off the top of a building. Um, and the film abruptly cuts before he hits the ground to a final scene of them messing about, of Holmes and Watson messing about in a restaurant. Um, as one of a series, I can imagine this is very enjoyable. They made 14 films in the space of about 7 years. I plan on watching as many of the others as I can get hold of. But as a first crack at an original adventure, I thought this was entirely enjoyable.